time to tantalize your earbuds with creative makers and shakers. It's Creative Living, the podcast with Jane Klaus.
Welcome to Creative Living, where we help you live your most creative life. I'm Jane Klaus, and it is Creative Living, the podcast, season 6. I am super excited about this podcast in season 6 because I am focused. I used to do radio for many, many years, and now I'm focused. I am focused on creativity, and radio is great. I love it, but the world has changed, and so have I. And it really has been a journey that I love taking, a journey that I love being on. When I was growing up, my parents used to say, you can't have a career being creative. And I was like, well, yes, you can. I mean, I think that any career you choose has a creative side to it. Whatever you want that to be, there's always a way to make it creative. And that is what this podcast is all about. It's talking to the people, talking about the places and things that they feel is creative that will inspire you. So yes, it's been a journey, but creativity is a journey. Am I right? I'm right. I am always on the pursuit of new ideas, of finding inspiration. I love having great conversations with like-minded people who live and breathe creativity. So before the new year, I went to Miami and I went to Art Basel, where I met artists and I saw art and I had so many ideas and there was so much inspiration everywhere I looked. It reminded me just how powerful creativity and art can be on the way we see the world. So I'm excited to keep that conversation flowing and going by talking to an amazing artist who I met at Art Basel, who embodies that spirit of creativity. She is Melissa Ellis. Melissa is a Dallas-based artist known for her bold and hand-sculpted oil paintings. Melissa's meticulous yet spontaneous process brings her canvases to life and has captivated art enthusiasts and collectors all over the world. So let's dive into it. Let's talk creativity. I am super excited to welcome to the show Melissa Ellis. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Jane. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great. I'm so happy you're here with us because I know that you love to talk about creativity.
I do. I do a lot.
As a matter of fact, when I met you, you said I could talk about the creative process and creativity like all day long, nonstop. And then you said, I'm a talker. And I said, hey, why don't you come on my podcast?
And I said, great, sounds wonderful.
He's like, you won't be able to get me to shut up. So I want everyone to understand before we dive into all of this, when I say you are a hand sculpted oil painter, explain to everyone, why don't you paint and sculpt the visual image for us? What do your paintings, your sculptures look like?
So people are probably familiar with impasto oil painting, but I kind of take it slightly different from there. So impasto oil painting or impasto painting in general is really thick, heavy texture on a canvas or wood panel. But what's a little different about what I do is instead of just taking a brush and sort of leaving heavy brush strokes or using a palette knife to just sort of scrape some paint on a canvas, maybe say doing a beautiful landscape and really giving texture to trees or mountains. I actually use mounds and mounds of paint, and I'll lay out, I love lots of colors, so usually lots and lots of colors, and I lay out mounds of oil paint, and then I take 2 palette knives. Depending on the style that I'm creating, different size knives will create different shapes and textures, but I pick up the paint, so I'll pick up a little red, a little blue, a little yellow, and I'll hand sculpt with my knives different shapes. So I do petal pieces that kind of look like flowers or leaves. I'll sculpt seashells or what I think look like rocks or bugs or candy or all kinds of different shapes. And I hand sculpt all of those with knives like a sculptor would sculpt. But then I apply it to canvas or wood panel. So I do all of it while it's wet. So I'm really somewhere between a painter and a sculptor.
So it's like 3D art too.
Very three-dimensional.
Yeah.
My pieces come off the canvas an inch, 2 inches. The bigger pieces even more. on the edges of my canvases, I have the texture come off, and they'll come off an inch to 2 inches. So very three-dimensional, which I think really gives it some extra motion and depth and just that really thick texture I love.
Yeah, and in doing some research on your work and looking at it, and it's amazing, and everyone needs to experience what you do. A lot of people consider it organized chaos, but I think that is a great compliment.
Thank you, thank you. I actually really like that too. I really like things in its place. I everything just sort of has a place, and I
Uh-huh.
like things straight and neat and organized just in every aspect of my life. But art is handmade. It always is going to have an organic feel. I'm not a machine. I'm not a robot. I'm not a
Yeah.
computer. So there will always be imperfections. And for a really long time, I struggled with that because I
Mm.
want things to look a very nice, neat way. And over time, I really started to lean in and embrace that organic, handmade imperfection. I still get that desired effect I want because I do my starbursts, which look like three-dimensional flowers. So I sculpt all those pieces, but um, each individual petal, even when I'm making them the exact same size and have them in a pattern, they're never exactly the same. And there's
Mm.
something really beautiful. So if I'm doing really any of my pieces, whether it's through color, pattern, or both, I I know what style I'm going to do before I get started,
Mhm.
but I have my colors laid out, but I don't map it. So
Mm.
I want to, let's say you're picking out the orange in the piece. You should be able to sort of squint and go pick out the orange, and they're evenly distributed throughout the canvas, but they're not perfectly in order. So I plan without being, there's still some chaos in there, if you will.
Which is great. And by the way, the most beautiful things on earth, we say, well, that's nature. You could go to
Mhm.
places all over the world and see different colors and textures, and it's not perfect, but
Right.
it is perfect.
That's what makes it perfect, is the
Exactly.
imperfection. Yes.
It's right. So talk about balance though, because you had said that you are meticulous in your planning, but yet you're super spontaneous when you don't really know where you're going. So how do you find that balance in your work when you get to your studio?
A lot of it is getting into flow, which doesn't always happen quite like you want or think that it will. But I start out with my space very organized. I have a plan. Okay, this is the size piece that I'm going to create. Here are my colors. I'm laid out. I write out my colors. I have a fully organized space.
Mhm.
And then I pop in my earbuds or put my music on, and I just get lost.
Mm.
And so I'm obviously paying very deep attention to what I'm doing as I'm picking my colors and I'm making my shapes. And I go, okay, this needs to go here and this needs to go here. But I don't overthink it because I'm in this great, organized space, and it's just me. And I've got I love music. I always am listening to music, very big influence of mine.
Ah.
And I just go and sort of let happen what happens. Once a piece is on there, once I have the texture on the canvas, it's often very difficult or impossible to change.
Mm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I have to go, okay, that happened. And now we're going to, move along accordingly and try not to overthink too much.
And I love the idea of flow because although I am not a sculptural painter, when I'm sewing, when I'm using, doing sustainable fashion or creating something, a garment, I'm in flow. For
Hmm.
me, it's about getting over the little speed hump to
Hmm.
get started. But once I'm in, I am in, and then you're in the flow. And you know what? If I make a mistake on whatever it is, because I don't actually like to use patterns in my
Yeah.
sewing, I just make it
Yeah.
up as I go.
Uh huh.
I say, well, there is no mistake. There are no mistakes. You kind of just said the same thing.
That's my favorite thing about art. And when I say art, all creativity. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you feel, whatever you see, whatever you create is art. And that's what's beautiful about it. That it's not, oh well, it was supposed to be this. Well, I can make it whatever I want. Yeah, that flow, you just feel a little less stressed, a
Yeah.
little less must be perfect all the time. And it's an incredible state to be in when you can get to it. And when I'm in it, I just,
Yeah.
you look
Forget
up
it.
and you go, oh, I forgot to eat. It's
Yeah.
dark outside.
Like what
And
happened? Yeah.
yeah. And then you look up and you go, whoa, look at all I accomplished.
And
And
isn't it cool
it's
too
pretty
when
neat.
you do the one thing and then you look at it and you're like, "Oh, that's cool." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like you even
Yeah.
surprise yourself
Yes.
because
Yes.
of where you're at. And sometimes you
Yeah.
don't see the big picture. And
Uh-huh.
that's the best part of
Yeah.
this process of creativity. So you talked a little bit about your creative workflow or your creative process. Give us a day. You walk in the studio, you start. Is there writer's block, quote unquote, or are you ready
Uh,
to go?
there can be, certainly. I think in any creative field, sometimes you just go, oh,
What?
well, because once I get started on a piece, I have to decide on my texture of what I'm going to do
Yeah.
because each of my styles, they're very different. And once I get going, that's what the piece is going to look like. So that helps having a plan in place before I get started. I do a lot of commission work, so I know in advance. Okay, I'm making a 48 by 60 starburst or a bijou piece, and we've chosen the colors together. I very rarely have any kind of block on color because
Mhm.
I go by feeling, by emotion, what mood am I in? And I typically use most of the colors under the rainbow. So it's really that usually is a great kickstart for me.
Yeah.
One of my tricks, and I try to tell people this all the time, if you're really feeling stuck, you've got that writer's block, or maybe you're lacking a little motivation for the day, you're tired or whatever may be going on, always start with the simplest thing.
Mm.
What is something really short, sweet, easy, and fun that you can do? And one of those things, picking out colors, is always one for me. Another one is just start painting some backgrounds on a canvas. Even if I decide later to change the color, it just sort of it gets your hands going, gets your mind going, it loosens you up a little bit. So finding that little something to just kind of get my creative, thought process going
Yeah.
is always a great way to start. And then just dive in. I usually need a lot of hours at a time because by the time I lay out all my colors, pick everything, and get all set up, that can take me a couple hours just to get set up before even starting. When I'm working on a piece, depending on size, it'll take from a couple days to about a month or so per piece. And when I'm working on a piece, I'll do 10, 12. I've done 22 hours straight in the studio before. Just
Wow.
when you get going, you get going.
That's awesome. Your family like, "Where did she go?" You know?
My husband gets a little nervous sometimes, calling, "Where are you? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm still up here. Sorry."
Like, "I'm having a great time." I've gotten those
Yeah.
calls myself, I will tell you that.
Uh-huh.
You said it takes anywhere a couple hours to a month or 20 days. I am thinking about this unique process that you use, and that is using your knives with
Mhm.
this paint, and you're making these 3D sculptures coming off of the canvas. Silly question, but how long did they take to dry? Because they're big. I would think
Forever.
that they do
Yeah.
take forever. Yeah,
Yeah. That's definitely my number one question that I get. Oil
really?
paint is the slowest to dry, and I don't use any fillers, mediums, anything. So it is 100% straight oil paint. And different colors will dry at different rates and different temperatures. So the colder it is, the longer it will take, and it will basically keep it from drying. So I live in Texas, and so the
That's
heat is
good.
very good for me. Typically, I like to say about 4 to 6 weeks to start to dry to the touch, but the thicker they are, the longer they're going to take to cure and harden. So it could be anywhere from 9 months to a year. It can take years to cure if they ever
What?
do, but that's perfectly fine. They're perfectly safe to sit and hang on a wall over time, and they'll dry. And so I always equate it to icing.
Uh-huh.
So oil paint has a similar consistency. So you're going to ice a beautiful cake or a cupcake. And let's say you have a beautiful cupcake and swirl, and you have the pretty icing on top. It'll keep that shape, hold that shape, and be exactly like that. You leave it on the counter overnight. And when you come back, if you stuck your finger in it, it'll
Mhm.
be a little crusty on the
Sure.
outside, but you're going to come up with fresh icing.
Yeah.
That's how oil paint dries, from the outside in.
Wow, I so it's okay to hang on the wall after
Mhm.
it's almost dry or medium dry, you can
Mhm.
still hang it, it's not gonna lose its shape because of that outer
No,
crust?
never.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Speaking of icing, because of what you do, are you an amazing cake decorator?
I do like to decorate. Just about. I don't bake a whole lot. I do enjoy baking, but whenever I have baked goods in the house, then I eat the baked goods. So I try to
Right.
limit myself a little bit.
You can use the same,
Yeah,
like maybe process, but you can just do
yeah.
it with icing.
I like to test my knife skills.
Yeah, I guess on smaller
Yeah,
projects. Yeah. And
yeah,
if you
yeah.
mess up, you just eat them and they're delicious. But
Exactly.
your art is delicious too. Okay. The drying process, I can't believe it. It could be a year, it could be years. So good thing you live in Dallas. It's a little bit
Yeah.
warmer there. Things will dry faster. If you're working on a commission piece, because art is different for everybody, or
Mhm.
creativity is different for everybody. So you have a commission piece. They say, okay, I want this size, I want this color palette. How do you ensure that their vision aligns with your artistic style?
It's actually, I have a lot of fun with it. So commissions can be tricky for depending on the type of art. Some artists love them, some artists do not love them. For me, I only do commissions of work that I create. If you come to me and say, Melissa, will you paint my dog or my kids on the beach? I'm going to say, I can, but no, I'm not going to. That's not the kind of art that I typically enjoy creating. So I refer them to wonderful friends who do that type of art. Commissions, it's always going to be my style. I've got multiple different textured styles that I do. I have a couple different flat work styles that I do as well. So it's really fun. I come over, I do free in home or virtual consultations with clients for businesses, restaurants, office space, residential. And I really try to get a feel for what is their personal style. My personal style is very bold, very colorful, unique, funky, and just about everything I do. That's not for everybody, and that's okay. I can really tailor my work to exactly what your personal style is. So if you have a beautiful white home with lots of neutrals and soft beiges, I can create a piece in those soft whites and beiges, or a stark black, or soft blues, whatever it works for the client. And so we meet in person or virtual, chat really about what they're looking for, and kind of how they live and their style. And then I create a custom palette from what I visually heard you say.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you
Oh,
you love all these colors. Maybe
yep.
you don't want any pink in your piece. Okay, well, I heard that. Do you like this shade, that shade? Then I send it to them for approval. They say yes to all the colors, or we can make any edits at that point. Because again, once I get started, I
Right.
can't change.
There's no turning back.
And everybody's a little different. Some people say, I know exactly what I want, or I'm not entirely sure what that's going to look like, or I trust you, do whatever.
I want what you do. Here's what I
Yeah.
like, and I'm gonna love what you end up providing
Yeah.
for me.
So everybody's a
Yeah.
little different. And there are some people that just really still have a hard time envisioning what that color palette is going to look like in that style. So I always will go a step further. I want to make sure my client is 100% happy. I guarantee all my work. And so I'll make small samples
Mm,
and go visually,
love
okay,
it.
you want this big piece for your wall. Well, let me make a small one for you so you can get an
Smart.
idea. I have some clients that we have to go through many samples till they get,
Really?
yeah, and that's totally fine, because I art is so personal,
Yeah.
and it is an investment, and I hope that it's something that lasts in families for generations. So let's get you exactly what you want.
That's cool. And you did an amazing commission piece for a very big fashion brand, Louis Vuitton. Really?
Yes,
So
yes,
talk about
I
that, because
did.
that is like, what? That's so exciting.
I got an email from the Louis Vuitton corporate office, and I thought I was being scammed. I'm being punked right now, and so I'm looking and I'm going, well, this all seems legit, okay. But yeah, they were opening a store in the Dallas area. This was in 2021.
Mhm.
And they commissioned me to do a piece for their permanent collection. It is a 42 by 77 big starburst painting, which it's pretty good size. It is hanging in their Plano location at Legacy West here in Dallas. And every 5 to 6 years, it will rotate around to another store around the world.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. You can base your vacations off of where your painting is at
I'm
what
happy
Louis
to do
Vuitton.
that.
Yeah, I figured you are. So do you go there? Is it like seeing your face on a billboard in Times Square? You go to the Louis Vuitton store and you're like, there is my work of art.
It's pretty surreal, yeah. When they open, I got to go to the opening and the ribbon cutting ceremony, which was really neat. And they had matched the entire shoe and purse collection to match my painting, which was really, really exciting. So it's always neat when I get to go there. But the best is when friends pop in and they see it, and I get texts or messages and just, oh my gosh, I saw your work. Look where I am today. And it's still pretty surreal. It's a very cool moment.
It's so cool. Everybody wants to put that on their resume, seriously. Has fashion inspired your sculpting painting, your paint sculpting? How do I say
Yeah,
that?
as a sculptural painting, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think they both influence each other. They, I love fashion. It is self-expression. It is
Mhm.
wearable art. It is how you want to outwardly present yourself to the world. It affects your mood. It just does so much, and you should have fun with it. I just try to have a lot of fun. I have fun in my art. I have fun in my fashion. I have fun in my home design. Certainly, as you get older and you get more experienced, you become more confident. I create for me and certainly for my clients, but what I feel is
Yeah.
best and for my art and the vision that I have. And it's okay to take risks and have fun. And if you make a mistake, okay, who cares? You learn
Right.
something from it
Sure.
probably. No big deal. And so I think the two very much go hand in hand.
I love that you're inspired by your clients, your commission pieces, the fashion icons that you are around and the work that you do there. And you said everybody had a start. Everybody started somewhere. Obviously, you started your career years ago, but where did you start? When it comes to creativity and painting and art, did you grow up in an environment that was like, here's a paintbrush?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
I did. I'm very, very lucky. I grew up in a very creative household. Began making art as soon as I was old enough to hold a pencil. But my parents collected art, and they would take us to art museums. And I got a Monet coffee table book when I was 6 years old, and I used to just sit on my floor and look at all the pretty
Wow.
pictures. And
Talk about
I,
inspiration.
yeah, I had Monet and Chagall painting posters, I should say.
Right, right, right.
Uh, I fell in love with painting and painters when I was really little. But it wasn't until college that I actually first started painting. I mainly was into drawing. I tried several different things, but just illustration, drawing, coloring was always my favorite. And I went to school for art history because
Oh,
I
you
thought
did?
who makes a living as an artist?
Well,
But I knew,
exactly what I said in the very beginning. You can't
yeah,
be an artist. You can't be creative, right? Cut your hair
right,
short and go to law school. I'm like,
right. You're going to be broke forever,
yeah,
and you're going to
right,
live in a
yeah,
cardboard box. And
right.
so I had to take studio classes for my degree, and I took everything but painting. I took sculpture, I took woodworking, I took jewelry smithing, and all these different classes. And then for my 21st birthday, my friends threw me a huge surprise party, and they bought me paintbrushes, canvases, one of the easels I still paint on today. And they said, "You have been talking
Wow.
about wanting to paint, so go do it."
Wow. Amazing friends.
Amazing. Still some of my very best friends in the whole world.
What I love about that story are your 21-year-old friends at that point in your life were actually paying attention to something that you had been talking about and talking about probably all through college and growing up. And they had the mindset to give you that little nudge because at that age, I mean, that's so pivotal. You're going to decide what you're going to do. And listen, there's always room I always say, don't decide what you're going to do till you're 28 because
Yeah.
you have to like figure it out. But I love that
Yeah.
your friends did that. And that's a story that you're going to write in your book.
Yeah. Yeah. And painting is very intimidating when you've never done it before.
Sure.
To go, here is a blank canvas, make anything.
Mhm.
Make anything. And then you have to learn how to use the materials and how do they work. And, it just, and then I studied these masters my whole life. And I had this very deep fear, which I'm usually not a very fearful person when it comes to trying new things, but I went, that's what, the big dogs do.
Right.
And they bought me, all acrylic paint. And my birthday's in December. So that next semester I signed up for Painting 101. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I put myself through college, and my set of paints
Mhm.
cost $300,
Wow.
20 plus years ago.
That's a lot for a
And
college kid.
yes, and I went, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try it. I've always wanted this. Screw it. I'll work extra shifts. Fine. And that is also how I ended up in oil paint.
You talked about a blank canvas being like,
Mhm.
go ahead, make something, make anything you want. That is what happens to me when I go into a fabric store. And I brought my best friend into a fabric store in New York, a very famous one. She does not sew, and she'll claim to not be creative, but I do believe that everybody is creative in their own way. But
I agree.
we walked into this store, and you probably do this with your paints and your canvas. We walked in and I said, you can pick out any fabric, anything that speaks to you, and you can make anything, whatever you want, you can make from this fabric that you like. It's that same feeling that you're jumping off the cliff of creativity when you look into all the colors and all the fabrics. So you look at that blank canvas and all of these beautiful oil paints next to you. It's that feeling that that the unknown is next.
hmm Oh, I mean, take me to an art supply store. I'm the happiest girl in the world. Like, that and Home Depot, because I'm like, ooh, what can I get in there and make? Right
Right.
there's tools, there's supplies, there's colors, there's just possibilities are endless, and that can feel overwhelming at times. But
It can be.
but if you lean into it and just go, I'm gonna see where my mood, where the supplies take me, and maybe you end up down an aisle that you weren't expecting, and that's where your next greatest idea can come from. Just letting your surroundings inspire you
Yeah.
in a place where you can literally make anything.
Or just a little inspiration. You and I met at Art Basel in Miami. You go to fashion galas. You and your husband are world travelers. All of those things just expose you and all of us to so much creativity, so many things. And we talked about it earlier. Just, I'm thinking of Sedona and the colors of the rocks. I'm thinking, of all these different places I've been in the world, the color of the water outside of Greece. Like this, it really can take you places in your experiences, in your travel. How does that influence your work as you grow as an artist?
My travels are my biggest inspiration because that's also nature. So it's very all encompassing for me. My dad always told me there are no greater colors than found in nature.
Hmm.
It's true. God created all the colors, and or whatever you believe, the colors are out there in nature. And so step outside, go be inspired. I love shapes, and I love really looking at the small things in life that are often overlooked because we are so busy. I am one who literally stops and smells the flowers.
Hmm.
And I love taking photos, not to be a photographer, but just for myself. I'll see beautiful bark on a tree, a pattern, of moss growing on it, or leaves on the ground, or a little critter crawling. I absolutely love the nature of the ocean. I love coral and fish, sharks. I with my paintings, I try not to be too literal, so they're still
Mhm.
very abstracted.
Sure.
I have shapes that look like some things. I think the seashell is probably the closest to a shape that's very more literal. I want the viewer to be imaginative. I'm not here to just slap some stuff up on a
Right.
canvas and be like,
Care.
okay, it's done. It's my whole heart in every piece.
It is your whole heart in every piece. It's your creativity that's coming out. And we talked about balance earlier, and there's got to be a balance between the business artist, Melissa, and the creative artist, Melissa.
Mhm.
Talk about the balance there, because I know from a creative perspective, we can get in flow and get lost in our creative work because that's fun. And
Yeah.
then sometimes business can be all business and it's
Mhm.
just not fun. Like we should all just be mullets. Like we're a party in the back and business in the front. Like that's our
Yes.
life as a
Yes.
creative person on the business side and the
I like
artistry
that
side.
analogy. Yeah.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, no, it's hard. It's really hard. I'm a one-man show,
Yeah.
so I do everything myself. So, um, yes, I'm an artist, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner,
Mm.
which means I have to handle all those duties. So, I do all the computer work, the invoices, the inventory, organizing, my taxes,
No,
finances,
right.
the photography, the social media, the editing. I built my own website from scratch. I mean, you name it, literally anything that's been done in my business over 22 years,
You did
I've
it.
done it myself.
Do you
But then
time block?
so I'm an artist and I'm not great at that
I
part.
know. Right.
Um,
That's why I asked.
I know that scheduling is uh, wise and something that I try to be better at.
Mm.
Now, I certainly block off time of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are all day in the studio. I'll have a meeting, Thursday. But when things pop up just like in anything. So it's a blessing and a curse to get to, make your own schedule.
So I ask everybody this, and I usually save it towards the end of the conversation, but tell us, what does creativity mean to you, Melissa Ellis?
Mm. That's a great question. It's a big question.
Yeah.
For me, creativity is self-expression. And I am creative in a lot of different ways, certainly through my art, but it's everywhere. It's creative problem solving. It's how you get dressed and how you want to do your makeup that day or what do you want to cook for dinner. They don't all have to be these huge big projects, but it's all around you. And it's your opportunity to share your thoughts, your vision, yourself with the world. And again, no right or wrong answer.
That's right.
I think that that's what makes the world beautiful is everybody's uniqueness, and
Yeah.
creativity is stepping into that
And
uniqueness.
nobody will ever be the same. Tell us about any new projects or any new series that you have coming up this year you want people to know about.
Well, I'm actually very excited. I just moved into a brand new studio a couple weeks ago. So, but I started a new series a couple
Mm.
years ago by accident, one of those happy accidents. But it was not so happy at the time. I was dealing with a really challenging family situation.
Mm.
And my mom became incredibly ill, and she had severe dementia. And I was
Mm.
her main caretaker for a large portion of that time. And I could not leave her alone. Like literally
Right.
24/7, I had to
You
have
were her
eyes on
caretaker.
her.
Yeah.
So I would bring her up to the studio with me, and I was working on some really big commissions at the time, and I just really I couldn't focus. I had really detailed work I
Yeah.
needed to do, and that's my head was
Yeah.
just
Your
my
reality
head
was not your reality.
right. So I just went, "Ugh, I need to just like doodle or do something else. It doesn't matter, just to kind of get
Sure.
get the gunk out, you know."
Yeah.
And these shapes just started coming out, and I didn't really understand them, or I thought they looked like jelly beans. And I just put it aside for a couple of years. I was just dealing with that with my mom, and it was just really hard and painful. But I kind of they were just around little sketches, a couple small paintings, and people would see them and go, "Well, what's that? What's that?" I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know. It's for later. It's for later." And then last year, I got accepted into an artist residency in France,
Wow.
which was absolutely incredible. I got to live in a chateau in the French countryside for a
Wow.
month, and I didn't know what I was going to do while I was there specifically, but I knew that I was not going to do any of my oil paintings.
Uh-huh.
And for me, the point of a residency was go do something new.
Sure.
Like this is already those wheels are in motion. That's happening. I want to always continue to explore different styles. While I was there, these beans is what I call them,
Mhm.
just started coming out.
Wow.
Small ones,
I
I was
love
getting these
it.
big ones. The people at the residency, shout out to Chateau Orcavo, we all just bonded immediately. And it was a really safe place.
Sure.
And I ended up going 5 days after my mom had passed away.
Oh,
And so it was a very challenging time. She had been very sick, and so like she's no longer suffering. So there's
right.
peace and
Right.
relief there. But obviously, I've lost my mom and like,
Yeah.
major grief with that.
Yeah.
As I was painting these beans, which started while I was
With your
caring for
mom.
her,
Sure.
which came from a really sad, hard, painful place.
Yeah.
Through my residency, I realized that those beans are relationships
Oh,
and they are people. They are loved ones.
yeah. I
And
was
I
gonna say
think
life.
their life,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because talk about a universal truth. Every person that has ever lived, will ever live on earth understands a relationship.
Mhm.
Everybody has parents, whether you know them or like them
That's
or
right.
love them,
Mhm.
but you know what a relationship is like. You meet people out in the world, you work with people, you have family, you have friends. Everybody knows a
Everybody.
relationship, and no two relationships on earth have been or ever will be the same,
Just like your beans.
just like
They're
the beans.
never the same.
Just like the beans. And I painted two large pieces while I was there, and one of them was really bright and colorful, almost like a totem pole of
Mhm.
different stacked beans. And again, I didn't realize it till I was about halfway through with the piece. I went, oh my goodness. I was listening to a song by Widespread Panic called Climb to Safety.
Oh,
And it's about the people in
wow.
your life that
Sure.
lift you up, that
Mhm.
carry you, that support you. And I realized these beans
Wow.
are the people who have saved my life and helped me get through this
This
horrific
time.
time. So all of my bean paintings are just a love letter to people that I love
Mm,
and that I want them to be for people. And
beautiful.
some of those beans, they're delicately balanced on each other because some
Mm.
relationships can be a little tricky, but that doesn't mean that they don't serve a purpose.
And the
And
thing is
so,
too, the beans, you can look at those specific pieces and those beans are certain relationships to you, but others, because of art and creativity, if I look at them, those beans can mean other relationships that are meaningful to me. So
right.
what you've created is something to help you heal, to help you grow, and then also something that means something to you that means something to others. Like it is so deep.
Well, and I've had clients go, "Oh my gosh, I love the three beans because it's me, my husband, and my daughter,"
Yeah.
or "Those are my 5 kids." I have one piece that I did that I think I named it "Pool Party" because I think it looks like the pool floats where you're just on a
Yeah.
summer day. It's you and your best friend, your partner, your sister, whatever, and you're laying
Floating
in
in
the
the pool.
pool,
Yeah.
not even talking, just listening to music, and
Just
but
being.
just being. But for me, it reminds me of my 2 dogs.
Yeah. Tell us about how we can find. We need more beans. We need more Melissa Ellis art. We need to see the sculptural oil painting photos, but we need to see the new series too. Instagram handle, website. How do we get more Melissa Ellis art?
Well, you just said it. So my Instagram, I'm Melissa Ellis Art everywhere. So my website is melissaellisart.com. My Instagram is and TikTok and all that. Facebook is at Melissa Ellis Art. You can email me at melissaellisart.com.
Reach out. melissaellisart.com at Melissa Ellis Art. If you have not met Melissa Ellis, you need to go and look at her work today because she's an incredible person. She's an incredible artist. Melissa Ellis, thank you so much for joining us on Creative Living.
Live better, creatively. For more inspiration, visit janeklaus.com. Thank you for listening.